All right, today we are diving deep into a story that completely blurs the line between a writer's own mind and his absolute darkest creation. And look, this is way more than just a book. It's a meticulously crafted, interactive nightmare, and we are about to peel back every single layer of its brilliant and, frankly, terrifying design.
So, we kick things off with these words from our protagonist, Aaron Darsikishin. He gives us the date right away, May 10th, 1994. From the very first moment, we're dropped into a world of just profound tragedy. This isn't just a bad day he's talking about. It's the moment his entire world turned to ash.
Okay, so who is this guy, Aaron, and what's all this about radioactive ash? Well, it all starts with the incredibly complex and, let's be honest, horrifying relationship between an author and his most famous character. It's the story of a writer and his clown.
And this is where you really see the core conflict, laid out right in front of you. On one side, you've got Aaron, a super successful author, and on the other, you have Kim Kaminsky, the fictional man who becomes this brutal clown, Mr. Chapiteau, in Aaron's bestseller. But here's the kicker. The more famous the book gets, the more it starts to haunt Aaron, and this thing he created starts to feel terrifyingly real.
And this quote? Man, it just perfectly sums up what's going on in his head. He feels like a total imposter in his own life, like he's constantly wearing a mask for his family. He's desperately trying to hold it all together, just terrified that the darkness he wrote about is starting to show through the cracks.
But you know how it goes. That kind of internal struggle, it never stays locked up for long. The darkness from his book starts to seep into his real life, and it begins to fracture his most important relationships, pushing his whole family right to the edge.
Just look at how the people closest to him are starting to react. His wife, Annis, reads his novel and she sees a monster she doesn't even recognize. His neighbor and friend, Jimmy, is so disturbed by the book he literally tells Aaron he needs help. But Aaron's defense is always the same. It's just fiction. And yet, the way he lashes out, the way he so violently rejects their concerns, it really suggests something much, much deeper is going on.
So to really get why everyone is so freaked out, we have to look at the book itself. We need to dive into the story within the story, the absolutely horrific origin of the character, Mr. Chapiteau.
So this timeline basically walks us through the plot of Aaron's novel. It starts out so simple, right? Almost idyllic. You've got Kim and his pregnant girlfriend Janice just living their dream life out of a camper van. But that piece is completely shattered when they're discovered by two desperate fugitives. This is the exact moment their world starts to crumble.
And this one line, wow. It gives you such a chilling look into the minds of these criminals. That's the older one, Lenny, screaming at his partner, Floyd. You can just feel the desperation. They're on the run, they're broke, and they are a ticking time bomb. Their desperation is the spark that's about to ignite this whole nightmare.
And from there, things just escalate with this awful, methodical cruelty. They kill the dog to silence it. They restrain Kim. And then the unthinkable happens. It's just one brutal act after another, leading to the murder of Jenny's and their unborn child, leaving Kim completely helpless with a gun pointed at his head. And that plea, that's it. That's the last tiny glimmer of hope before Kim's entire world is just obliterated. This is the trauma that Aaron put on the page, the story that made him a famous author, and the fiction that is now tearing his own life apart. Okay, so let's pull back from the book and snap back to Aaron's reality. Because this is where those two worlds, the fictional horror he wrote and the fragile life he's living, are about to smash into each other. Literally.
It's funny, Aaron actually wrote this line for a different book he was working on, but it just perfectly describes what's happening to him. He feels that depravity he wrote about is now following him, becoming his shadow, his very essence. The fiction isn't at a safe distance anymore.
So picture this. The family is in the car, they're on their way to the circus of all places, and the tension just explodes. Annis calls him sick, and Aaron's response tells you everything. He screams that his neighbor was messing with his head just like you are. See, for him, any criticism of his book has become a direct attack on his sanity.
And right then, in that one single furious moment of distraction, a truck horn blares, and everything just stops.
And then, after the crash, Aaron wakes up, and he's not alone in his own head anymore. There's a new voice, a voice that's calm, it's reassuring, and it is absolutely terrifying. It's the voice of Mr. Chapiteau.
The clown. The character has literally broken through the page and taken root in his creator's shattered mind.
Okay, so now we got to talk about what makes this whole thing so unique, and that's how the story is told. See, this isn't just a novel or a movie, it's designed as an interactive graphic novel, and it has its own language for pulling you inside this nightmare.
First up, you've got these things called hotspots. Now, you can think of them as interactive objects in the world. You know, a book on a table, a phone that's ringing. But clicking on them does more than just move the plot along. It lets you dive right into Aaron's thoughts, revealing all these secrets and anxieties he's hiding from everyone else.
Then you have this mechanic called full face. And it's exactly what it sounds like. In these super tense, emotional conversations, the camera just punches right in on their faces. It's an incredibly powerful tool because it forces you, the player, to confront their raw emotions head on. You're right there with them.
And finally, a lot of the big story beats are told through what are called comic cutscenes. So the entire horrifying backstory of Mr. Chapiteau, you don't see it as a movie. You experience it as this series of still comic book panels. It's a very deliberate choice that gives the entire experience the feel of a living, breathing graphic novel.
And it all builds to this moment, right here, when the clown finally formally introduces himself from inside Aaron's mind. And listen to how he does it. It's this grand theatrical entrance, calling himself the product of a plague-ridden, sick mind. The creation is now literally defining the creator.
And that really leaves us with the one massive question at the heart of this entire experience. It's a seriously chilling thought. What happens when the horrors we imagine refuse to stay on the page? When a character becomes so powerful that he hijacks the narrative from his own author, who is actually writing the story anymore?